1953. A kitchen in eastern Tennessee. 7 in the morning. A girl, 9 years old, stands on a wooden step stool at the counter beside her mother. The mother's hands are in a bowl of flour and lard, working the dough with her knuckles, pressing, folding, pressing again. The girl watches without being told to watch. She is not here because her mother assigned it. She is here because the kitchen is warm and her mother is in it, and there is nowhere else she would rather be. The mother says nothing for a long time. Then she takes the girl's small hands and presses them into the dough and says, "Feel when it's ready. Not when the clock says, when your hands say." The girl is 67 years old now. She still makes biscuits the same way. She has never once used a recipe. She knows when the dough is ready because her mother's hands taught her hands on a Tuesday morning in 1953 in a kitchen that no longer exists. That is how it worked, not in classrooms, not from books. At kitchen tables and ironing boards and back porches, in the ordinary hours of an ordinary week, a mother teaching a daughter the complete language of how to run a life, without either of them calling it teaching. These are 15 of those lessons. Not one of them required a class, a credential, or a curriculum. Most of them have now vanished so completely that the women who possessed all 15 would be considered remarkable today. In 1953, they were simply considered ready. Subscribe before we begin. Number 1 is the lesson that made every other lesson possible, and we are saving it for last. Counting down from 15. Number 15. She taught her daughter to sew, not to create, to maintain. There was a sewing basket on the shelf, needles in a cushion, thread in a dozen colors, a thimble worn smooth on the inside from 10,000 uses. When a button fell off, she didn't go to the store. She went to the basket. When a hem came loose, she sat down that same evening and fixed it by lamplight before anyone went to bed wearing it again. Her daughter watched this happen so many times that the watching became knowing, and the knowing became habit, before the daughter ever touched a needle herself. What that skill meant was not thrift, though it was that, too. It was something older, a refusal to be defeated by small things. A woman who could thread a needle by lamplight and set a hem straight without a ruler had a relationship with the material world that was direct and unmediated. Things broke. She fixed them. That was the whole transaction. What disappeared when it vanished was the understanding that maintenance is dignity, that the things you own are worth caring for. The modern woman throws away a blouse because a button is missing. The 1953 mother would have found that incomprehensible, not because she was frugal, but because she understood that the things you tend to last. The things you abandon don't. Number 14. She taught her daughter to read a kitchen, not a recipe. She owned cookbooks. She had read them once, years ago, the way you read a map before a journey you already know by heart. After that, she cooked from memory and instinct, and the particular knowledge of her own kitchen. Her oven ran hot. Her cast iron held heat longer than any recipe assumed. The butter in her county was richer than whatever the recipe writer had used in whatever city she had never visited. She taught her daughter not how to follow a recipe, but how to understand one, what it was trying to achieve, what it would feel like and smell like when it was right. That the timing was a suggestion, the texture was the truth. This skill had no name. Call it embodied knowledge, the intelligence that lives in the hands and the nose and the memory of every time you have made this thing before, for these people, in this kitchen. It could not be written down because it was not made of words. It was made of repetition and attention and love expressed through a wooden spoon. What disappeared when it vanished was confidence in your own judgment. The modern cook follows the recipe exactly and is anxious when it doesn't turn out right, because she has no internal standard to measure against. The 1953 mother knew when it was right before she tasted it. She had made it 100 times, and the 100 times were in her hands. We traded that kind of knowing for convenience, and what we got in exchange were meals that are technically correct and somehow taste of nothing. Number 13. She taught her daughter that a house runs on a schedule, not on good intentions. Monday was washing, Tuesday was ironing, Wednesday was floors, Thursday was baking, Friday was marketing, Saturday was mending, Sunday was rest, which meant a different kind of work done at a slower pace. She didn't write the schedule down. She didn't need to. It lived in her body the way a heartbeat does, below the level of decision, part of the rhythm of being alive. The house ran because she ran it, with the quiet, invisible precision of a woman who understood that chaos is not the natural state of a home. Order is. And order requires tending every single day without waiting to feel like it. What that skill represented was deeper than cleanliness. It was the understanding that a home is not a background. It is something you make every day out of attention and intention, and the willingness to do the same necessary things repeatedly without requiring them to feel meaningful. They are meaningful. That is the whole point. What disappeared when it vanished was the home as a managed environment. The modern household runs on improvisation. The laundry is always almost done. The kitchen is clean on Tuesday and wrecked by Thursday. Nobody planned the chaos. Nobody knows quite how to stop it. The 1953 mother would have recognized it immediately, and she would have known exactly what it was costing the people who lived inside it. Number 12. She taught her daughter to stretch what they had and waste nothing. Sunday's roast became Monday's sandwiches. The sandwiches became Tuesday's soup. The soup bone went back in the pot with an onion and whatever was in the bottom of the vegetable drawer. Nothing left the kitchen that had not been completely used. Not because they were poor, though sometimes they were, but because waste was understood as a moral failure, not just an inconvenience. Her daughter absorbed this not from a lecture, but from watching, from being handed the leftover chicken and being asked, "What can we make from this?" From learning that the question was always, "What else can this become?" Not, "What do I buy next?" What that skill represented was an orientation toward the material world that has almost entirely disappeared. A woman who could feed 5 people on almost nothing had not just a skill, but a philosophy. That enough, properly managed, is genuinely enough. That more is not always better. That the woman who wastes is failing the people who depend on her in a way that goes beyond money. What disappeared when it vanished was that philosophy. We are the first civilization in human history that throws away more food than many nations eat. We don't experience this as a moral failure because no one ever stood beside us at the kitchen counter and asked us what else this could become. Number 11. She taught her daughter to put up food and think in seasons. In August, she stood in a hot kitchen for 2 weeks. 30 quarts of tomatoes, 20 of green beans, 14 of peaches, 8 of apple butter. The jars lined the cellar shelf in rows, their lids sealed, their contents glowing. She knew, looking at them, that her family would eat through February. Her daughter stood on a step stool and learned the sequence. Sterilize, pack tight, wipe the rim, set the lid, listen for the pop of the seal. A popped seal meant you had done it right. It meant winter was handled. What that skill represented was sovereignty. A woman who could put up her own food was not dependent on what the store had, or what it cost, or whether the roads were passable in January. She had looked ahead. She had done the work in August so that February would be provided for. That is a relationship with time, with the future, that is almost entirely gone. We live now in the permanent present tense, consuming today what arrived today, with no sense of season behind the food or work behind the season. The 1953 mother thought in months. We think in delivery windows. What we lost is not canning, it is the long view. And the long view, once lost, is very hard to find again. 5 skills in. Stop for a moment and notice something. Every one of those 5 skills was about the same thing. Not housework, not domesticity, not the limitations of what women were permitted to do in 1953. Every one of them was about competence, about a woman who understood the material world she lived in, its food, its fabric, its time, its resources, so completely that she could shape it rather than be shaped by it. The 1953 mother was not trapped by her skills. She was built by them. 5 more before we reach the ones that will stay with you. Stay with me. Number 10. She taught her daughter to iron with intention, not obligation. Collar first, then cuffs, then sleeves, then the body, working carefully around the buttons, never over them. The right temperature for the fabric, too hot, and it scorches, too cool, and the wrinkle doesn't take. A sprinkle of water from the fingers for a stubborn crease. The finished shirt hung on the doorknob, still warm. She pressed her husband's shirts and her son's school trousers and her daughter's Sunday dress every Tuesday morning without fail. Not because she enjoyed it, because she understood that how her family appeared in the world was a statement she was making on their behalf, and she made that statement carefully. What that skill represented was respect, not vanity. The idea that the people you love deserve to be sent into the world looking as though they are loved. That a pressed collar says, "Someone in this house sees you." That a wrinkled one says the opposite. What disappeared when it vanished was that language. We wear wrinkled shirts to job interviews and tell ourselves it doesn't matter, and something is slightly off, and we cannot name it. The 1953 mother could name it. She had pressed it out of her family every Tuesday for 30 years and never once asked for acknowledgement. That was not servitude. That was love made visible in the most ordinary possible way. Number 9. She taught her daughter to write a letter and mean every word. Date at the top right. Dear so-and-so. 3 paragraphs. The first catching up, the second with news, the third asking after the recipient's people. Your affectionate cousin, with love. Sincerely yours, depending on how close. She wrote letters every Sunday afternoon at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. To her mother, to her sister, to her husband's aunt in Knoxville, to the woman she had been friends with in the town they'd left in 1946. Her daughter sat across from her sometimes and wrote to her own pen pal in Minnesota, a girl she never met, with whom she corresponded for 11 years and stood up in her wedding. What that skill represented was the discipline of putting feeling into form. A letter required you to know what you thought before you wrote it, to organize it, to say it clearly, completely, and then stop. It required you to consider the person reading it, what they needed to hear, what would comfort them, what would make them feel remembered. A letter was an act of sustained attention directed at one human being. Nothing else, no one else. What disappeared when it vanished was that discipline. We communicate now in fragments, in reactions, in the first thing that comes to mind sent before we have finished thinking it. We have more ways to reach each other than any humans in history. We have never been lonelier. The 1953 mother, writing her Sunday letter to her sister, would have understood exactly why. Number 8. She taught her daughter to open the door and mean it. If someone came to the door, the coffee was on within 5 minutes. If they stayed, there was something on the table, a slice of whatever cake was there, crackers and cheese at a minimum. She did not apologize for the state of the house. She did not say she wasn't expecting company. She made the person comfortable and sat down across from them and gave them her full attention. Hospitality was not an event she prepared for. It was a posture she maintained. The house was kept in a state of readiness not for her own comfort, but for the possibility of someone else's. The coffee pot was on because someone might come. The cake was made because there might be a reason to share it. Generosity was not a mood, it was a practice. What disappeared when it vanished was the open door. The modern home is a sealed environment, entered by appointment, shared on screens but closed at the threshold. We broadcast our interiors to strangers and lock them against neighbors. The 1953 mother's door was open. What came through it was a community. What we have instead is a very clean house that nobody visits. Number 7. She taught her daughter to handle a sick child without panic. She knew what a fever meant and what to do about it. She knew which cough was croup and which was just a cough. She knew how to clean a wound, soap, warm water, a clean cloth. She knew how to take a splinter out with a needle sterilized over a match flame in steady hands. She knew that most things get better on their own if you keep them clean, keep the child fed, and keep yourself calm. She taught her daughter these things not from a book, but from doing them together. Here is the basin. Here is the water. Here is how you tell if the fever is breaking. Here is when you call the doctor, and here is when you don't. What that skill represented was the confidence to be the first line of response, not the last, not the only, but the first. She trusted herself because experience had built that trust, and her mother's knowledge had built the experience. What disappeared when it vanished was that confidence. The modern parent Googles the symptom, finds something alarming, and calls the pediatrician, who says it's a cold, and sends them home. We are not less caring than the 1953 mother. We are less certain, and the uncertainty costs everyone, the parent, the child, the healthcare system that was never designed to absorb the anxiety of people who were never taught to trust their own capable hands. Number 6. She taught her daughter to manage money in an envelope. The envelopes were in the kitchen drawer, one for rent, one for groceries, one for utilities, one for church, one for emergencies. On the first of the month, she counted what was in each envelope, allocated what her husband had brought home, and did not spend what was not there. Not as a rule, as a moral position. Her daughter watched this at the kitchen table every month, the envelopes laid out, the counting done in pencil, the quiet satisfaction when the numbers worked. She absorbed, without a single financial lesson, the foundational truth of a solvent life. You cannot spend what you do not have and remain the person you intend to be. What that skill represented was a moral relationship with money. The 1953 mother did not think of the household accounts as finance. She thought of them as keeping faith with her family, with reality, with herself. Debt was not a tool. It was a failure. Credit was not a resource. It was a last resort reserved for genuine emergencies. We live now in a culture of consumer debt so normalized that we have forgotten it was ever considered a failure. And the generation of women who kept families solvent with an envelope system and a pencil have been replaced by a generation managing 17 open credit accounts and a vague, persistent unease they cannot locate. The 1953 mother could locate it in 30 seconds. It would be in the envelopes. Here is something worth saying before we reach the final 5. These women are in their 80s and 90s now, the ones who are still alive. They are the last people in America who hold all of this in their hands and their habits. The whole living body of knowledge that kept families fed and clothed and solvent and connected and cared for through everything the 20th century threw at them. And most of them have stopped being asked. The last 5 skills are the ones I want you to think about long after this video ends. They are the skills that went deepest, not into the hands, but into the character. Stay with me. Number 5. She taught her daughter to read aloud, every single night. Every night without exception, from the time each child could sit still until the time they were old enough to read back to her. Not from educational materials, from books. Charlotte's Web and Little Women and the King James Bible and whatever else lived on the shelf or came home from the library on Saturdays. She did arithmetic at the kitchen table on rainy afternoons, not from workbooks, but from the world. If butter costs 42 cents a pound and we need 2.5 pounds, what do we need? The world was the curriculum. She was the teacher. The teaching happened in the margins of everything else. What that skill represented was the understanding that education is not a place you send a child. It is a thing you do with one. A mother who reads aloud every night is giving her child something no school can replicate. Not just the content of the books, but the experience of sitting close to someone who loves you while the story unfolds, which teaches the child that stories matter, that language is worth the time, that the world inside words is as real as the world outside them. What disappeared when it vanished was the mother as the child's first and most important teacher. We have outsourced that role so completely to institutions that we have forgotten it was ever ours. The 1953 mother did not think of herself as an educator. She thought of herself as a mother. The education was simply what you did when you loved someone and wanted them to be ready. Number 4. She taught her daughter to dress for the occasion, not for herself. 3 categories: the house dress for working, faded, comfortable, adequate for mopping floors and making bread; the day dress for going out, pressed, presentable, the right shoes, hair done; and the good dress for Sundays and occasions, treated with the reverence due something that cost real money and was expected to last a decade. She taught her daughter the system not as a lesson in fashion, but as a lesson in reading the room, in understanding that different moments have different requirements, and that the woman who dresses the same for every occasion has stopped paying attention to the difference between them. What that skill represented was respect for the occasion, for the other people in it, for the moment itself. A Sunday dress for Sunday said, "I have noticed that this day is different, and I have honored that difference." A house dress for housework said, "I am a practical woman who does not perform for an empty kitchen." What disappeared when it vanished was intentionality. We dress now for comfort first, self-expression second, occasion a distant third. The 1953 mother would not have said this was wrong. She would have said it was a way of moving through life without quite landing in it, of being present in a room without being present to it. Number 3, she taught her daughter to sit with grief and bring food. When a neighbor's husband died, she did not send a card. She appeared at the door with a covered dish and stayed for an hour and said almost nothing. When her own mother died, she cried for one day. Then she got up and cooked a meal for everyone who came to the house because there were people who needed her and she was the one who could. She taught her daughter not how to grieve, that cannot be taught, but how to be present with someone else's grief, how to show up, how to bring food, because food is the oldest language of comfort that exists, and it says the only thing that needs saying, "I am here." You do not have to eat alone tonight. What that skill represented was the understanding that grief is not a problem to solve. It is a weight to share. And the woman who can sit in a room with someone else's sorrow without trying to fix it or hurry it along is doing something profound. She is bearing witness. She is saying with her presence, "This loss is real, and it matters, and I am not leaving." What disappeared when it vanished was the community of women who held each other through the worst things. The 1953 mother had a network, her neighbors, her church women, the women she had known since childhood. When something terrible happened, the network activated. Food appeared, hands appeared, presents appeared. Nobody scheduled a session. The women simply came. We replaced that with a text message and a heart emoji and the genuine intention to reach out soon. It is not the same thing. It was never going to be the same thing. Number 2, she taught her daughter to grow something and understand what that means. Down the side of the house she had tomato plants, green beans, cucumbers, a row of herbs drying in bundles from the kitchen ceiling in September. In the front she had roses, not for cutting, just for looking at, because she believed that beauty was also a form of nourishment, and a house with nothing beautiful in it was diminished in ways that don't always show up immediately. She taught her daughter to plant from seed, not from the nursery, to understand that a seed is a form of faith, that you put it in cold ground and tend it and wait. And eventually, because you did the work correctly and the ground was right and the rain came when it should, something appears that was not there before. She taught her that patience is not passivity. It is active waiting. Daily tending in the faith that the tending is working even when you cannot yet see it. What disappeared when it vanished was that understanding. The daily contact with something living that was not a person. The quiet companionship of a garden. The particular satisfaction of eating a tomato still warm from the vine that you planted in March from a seed no bigger than a pinhead. We have convinced ourselves we don't need this. The 1953 mother would have thought that was the saddest thing she had ever heard. And number 1, the lesson that all 14 were building toward. A 1953 mother could hold a household together under conditions that would stop most modern adults entirely. A sick child, a husband working double shifts, the furnace broken in January, money short, her own mother failing 3 states away, Christmas coming. She handled it. Not because she was extraordinary, she was entirely ordinary, one of millions of women doing the same thing in the same years across the same country. She handled it because she had been built to handle it. Every skill her own mother had passed to her was a deposit in the account of her competence. The sewing so small, problems didn't become large ones. The cooking so the family ate regardless. The envelopes so there was always something set aside. The first aid so the sick child was tended before the panic could set in. The schedule so the house ran even when she was exhausted. The letter so she was never entirely alone. The garden so she understood that with patience and honest work, things grow. She had been handed a complete set of tools for the life she was going to live. Not one came from a class. Not one required a certificate. Every single one came from a woman who pulled a step stool to the counter and said, "Stand here, watch me, now you try." That is what the 1953 mother taught her daughter. Not skills. A way of being in the world that was capable and generous and undefeated by ordinary difficulty. A way of moving through life that left things better than she found them. A way of loving people that showed up in the ironed shirt, the sealed jar, the covered dish at the door, the letter written on Sunday, the hand over the smaller hand in the bowl of flour on a Tuesday morning in Tennessee. She is in her late 80s now, if she is still alive, or she is gone. And what she knew, the whole living body of it, carried in her hands and her habits and her quiet daily attention for 70 years, went with her. Not because anyone took it, because nobody stood on the stool long enough to receive it. There is a woman in your life right now who is old enough to remember all of this. Your grandmother, a great aunt, a neighbor in her 80s who still keeps a garden and writes letters by hand and sets a proper table when you come. Go to her, sit down, ask her to show you something she knows. The stool is still there. Subscribe and tell me in the comments, what is the one thing your mother or grandmother taught you that you still use today? Not the most impressive thing, the most ordinary thing. The thing so small you almost forgot she taught it to you at all. That is the one I want to hear.